Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to Dodos Riding Dinos. Yes, this is as ridiculous as it sounds. It is by Detestable Games. They have a bunch of various games. Also Draco Studios down here. There's your other logos. A bunch of different games they've had, including War for Chicken Island and I forgot the other one's TV something. They're also coming out with a Panda Party game. They're all part of the Creature Kingdom. They kind of have a series of these cartoony-looking animals doing unusual things for them to be doing. And this one happens to be a racing / minor dexterity game. With the aforementioned Dodos riding dinosaurs. So it's a very interesting concept. It's very simplistic gameplay. Like, I think anyone can pick up and do it. Right there it has listed as 8+ for an age. I think the expansion upped it up to 10 just because there's maybe a little bit more elements. But yeah, 1 to 8 players. Usually there's solo modes, there's challenge modes, there are short races, there's long races, there are a campaign type mode, or a champion mode, I should say, like a cup mode, or you play multiple races in a row, and that actually adds some new elements to the game. But that's really cool, the whole idea of it. So what we're going to do is, before I even look through the book and look at all the different cards and miniatures and all that, I want to look at the boards. Just so you can kind of see the expansiveness of one of these maps you're playing on. So this is an example of one of the boards. Now they're double-sided, and there's 2 boards in here, so you get 4 different maps to play on. So I think that's definitely cool, because I think like most racing games that are out there, there's like, here's your map, like, that you're driving on, and the difference each time is just what cars you pick and how you do stuff, and it's more focused on the raciness aspect versus just something a little bit different. But here we have, so they have an inner ring here, the start and finish line. You have an outer ring there. We can kind of note they're slightly different colors. These ones on the outside have like a little orange, and these have kind of like a tan colored. But this is the Dodo Island. Trying to think if it has an actual official name. Dodino Island. There we go. Yes, it's kind of neat. So if you want to play a shorter game, you pick your racers, you do the little inner track. You want to pick a longer one, you do the outer track. So it does make for, so basically each map has 2 races on it, and there's, so there's 4 maps. So it gets you 8 different races you can do. Plus, again, there's regular mode versus cup mode. So it does give you some options there. So play like a single one or play like multiple in a row. Very cool. And each map actually does add some other. This is the basic one. So, of course, we're going to see some of the different dodos and dinos and stuff on there. But yeah, just the arrows are going to say which direction you go. And then you go. How the game basically works is you play each player plays different cards. We'll have different cards here. Just as a quick overview, I'll kind of go through it. But they'll have some that are blue, which are lesser movement, but they're easier to use. We have some reds that are aggressive. These are normal. These are aggressive. They have higher movement and a little bit better abilities, but they're going to be a little bit harder to use. And then we have reaction cards, which certain things happen, they react. So during a player's turn, they'll take their little dinosaur here, just as an example. They'll face down card, reveal it. It'll tell you where to go, tell you how many spaces you move. And that's how everyone moves. You pick them, you place your cards unrevealed so that nobody knows, and you gotta flip them up, so then you gotta kind of see who gets to go first. It's just kind of, again, we'll go through the book, the rules in a little bit here. I just want to go through the boards quick. I'm not going to go through the specifics on the boards, just that they are different. So here's our other side. We have the Ignis Volcano. So it's kind of cool. You think dinosaurs, volcanoes, that definitely makes sense. Or maybe dodos and volcanoes. But yeah, you got the inner and outer track. These ones go the other direction. And the only difference in here is now they have these little flame spots on here. You can kind of see at the bottom down here on different parts of the board. And it's just going to add a different little element to the game. So it adds a little extra thing that can happen. So that's that board. But yeah, these are definitely big, so they're gonna... Now they could have tried to make, like, I will be reviewing other racing games. I've already done, like, Thunder Road Vendetta, and I have Dungeon Cart coming in the future. And they have modular boards. So it's like, you place this track down, so the board's going to change every time. Where these are always going to stay the same. You just have different ones to do. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. Modular tracks are fun. Modular, being able to swap different, have different, you never know what type of things are going to come up next, isn't bad. But this also, again, I think makes it quick and easy to get out for family or like a party game. Because you're not having to then just sit here and decide which board goes in which order and this and that. You just pop the board out, put your miniature down, shuffle your cards, and you're good to go. So here we have Polera Iceberg. So Dinosaurs Ice, you have a fire ice stage. If you played racing games, of course you're going to have an ice stage. You have a fire stage. But again, they have their inside and outside paths. But this one actually does, and it has these little shortcuts in here. So it lets you take some extra different, quicker paths. Like across to the, stepping over the bridge. But there's hazards to that. And as you go through the rules, I'll kind of go over that a little bit more. The other thing is on the inner track is they have a minus movement in there because it's deep snow. So like if you kind of take the inner one, you're actually going to go a little bit slower. So it's kind of a neat extra element to the game. Then the last one we have is this beautiful shiny board. It's our Rainbow Road of the series. Borella Sky, like Aurora Borealis, so it's Borella Sky. Yeah, you have an inside and outside path there too. But what's definitely you can tell here is interesting is you notice that the outside paths aren't connected. They have little ramps that you have to jump off. So when you jump off of here, you land over on these spots. And depending on how well you do the jump, you might land further or back farther, and then you go back around. And then the outside track is the same idea, except you have to jump, from one corner way over to here, and then from like this side over to there. So you have to jump through the space. You can see the little island down there too, which is really a fun extra thing in there. So that's actually really cool. So you have 4 different maps. Basic plain one, which doesn't have any special rules. Then we have 3 different ones that each have their own unique rules to play on. So it's really cool. All right. I'm going to flip this shut quick, just so I don't break it. I'm going to drop out. I'm just going to show just this part of the map for the game, so I don't have to have the entire thing folded out. There's my camera. So, how do we play the game? Let's kind of go over that quick. Again, setup is going to be fairly easy here. Place the game board on the island. Each player selects a racer and a corresponding miniature. If you're playing with less than 3 players, see page 8. So it's typically, so it does say a 1 to 8 player game. It is generally a 4 to 8 player game. If you're playing with 1 player, there's a solo mode, but there's special rules for 2 to 3 players. So yeah, it expects you to play with 4 to 8 players generally. The other one, but there are extra modes to play the other way. One's more like a challenge mode, but we'll get into that a little bit later. First, pick your first player token. They get a first player marker, which is represented by this little dodo miniature. It's a very stereotypical, atypical. Anyhow, and then you place all your racers down. So basically, they place is whoever is going first places their character the farthest away, and then it goes in reverse order. So the players that are going last to start closer, and it goes backwards because they get to play their card. They just get a little disadvantage on some of that stuff. Choose your inner outer. So basically, however you want to play for your length of your game. Shuffle movement cards and deal 6 cards to each player. Place the remaining on the table. And then place the dice and projectiles, which is the dexterity thing. So that's basically how your game is set up. Each player has their cards, and it goes like that. Movement cards, again, they say there's 3 different types. There's normal, aggressive, and reaction. So they're going to have a name. a speed value inside a little dinosaur symbol, like kind of like a big paw print for 1, which are blue, more of like a predatory one for red, which is aggressive, and kind of like a claw for reaction. Then they'll have a special effect. Now, there are racer cards. So each character will have a racer card, which will have 2 different sides. Either one that's just the character name, and then the other side that has single-player challenge mode and difficulties, as well as special abilities, which you can opt to use if you like. To play a single game. So there are 2 phases. There's a steaming phase. Simultaneously, all players must choose a normal or aggressive card from their hand, place it face down on the table. Reaction cards can't be played because they need a special trigger. When all cards are revealed at the same time, the aggressive card limit is exceeded. Their players are considered enraged for the rest of the round. The effects of their aggressive cards are canceled. They only resolve their move speed. So this is the things, like I was showing before, is there's a lot more blue cards, but they're going to have less move values and maybe not as powerful of abilities or effects, but you can play them no matter what. So you might move a little, but, you know, so if we kind of just take a look, so like just a quick, we might move 0 spaces, we might move 3, and we might move 2. They do have some different ones in here. But then the red are going to start off with, like, they have 2s and 1s, but they usually have more aggressive abilities to, like, maybe attack or take better position and do some of that stuff. The aggression limit is usually half the number of players. So in a 1 to 4 player game, it's 2. It's 3 for a 5 to 7 player game. So like they're kind of showing here is Spike plays a blue card just to move his card, do his effect. But then it says dealing 2 damage to these guys. So it's just how his card works. But yeah, so if anyone draws 2 of the, so if like you're playing a 4-player game and two or 3 players play red cards, they still get a move, they just don't get their effects. It kind of cancels it. So you have to, like, it ends up sort of being that gamble, like, do you try and be aggressive and get this extra ability, or do you play it a little bit safer? Because if too many people are too constantly aggressive, you know, no one's going to get any of that advantage. Then the running phase. So starting with the first player, whoever has the first player marker, advance erasers the number of hex equal to the speed. All players may play any reaction cards at this time. If your effect was not canceled, resolve your effect. Discard the card played, and then any player with cards in their hand, any player without cards in their hand must go back 3 hexes and draw a hand of 5 new cards. So as you're playing, you're eventually going to run out, and you'll have to kind of move back. So cards that doing damage to you, which makes you lose cards, is bad. Not playing your cards to their full effect, again, too many aggressive too often might be an issue. Yeah, then you move back, you draw a new hand. So it's kind of like a little interesting mechanic there. Like a stall, almost. Then the player to your left takes your turn, and then each player goes. So it just goes in. It sounds a little complicated, but it's pretty much move, do effect. If you don't have cards, you move back, draw a new hand, and then the next player gets to go. And then you go all the way to the end. At the end of the round, any end of round resolves start with the first player. The lead racer, so whoever is in the lead, gets to advance 1 extra hex, so they get a little advantage for being in the front. But then all other players draw 1 card, starting with the first player, or to the left of them if the first player is the lead racer. Because the lead racer does not get an additional card. And that's where kind of the draw with this other part here goes in. As you get farther in the front, if you stay in the front for too long, you're gonna slowly run out of cards. Where at the end of every round, everyone else is gonna, at least at bare minimum, be replacing their 1 card. And then eventually you might get 6 hexes ahead of everybody, but then you don't have any cards, you have to move back 3. Now you only have a 3 hex advantage. And it gives players an extra chance to catch up. It says players out normal aggressive in their hand must go back to 3 hexes and draw their 5 cards in case for something did that. There's no max hand size though. End of the race, when all the races whoever gets to the end first. So that's pretty much the basics of that. So as movement effects, there is damage. When you take damage, you must choose and discard cards from your hand equal to the amount of damage taken. Place them in the discard pile. During the game, cards in your hand are your racer's energy. If you're not due to play or damage, at the end of the turn, you must go back 3. So you kind of like, your dinosaur's running, and this is how much energy to have on. You play too much, they have to stop, take a quick break, and then recharge again. If an effect in your card requires you to take more damage than the amount of cards, cancel the effect. So this would basically be like, if I have 1 card in my hand, it's telling me to take 2 damage, I don't take any damage. As opposed to like, you think you take 1, draw a new, and then at bare minimum. If you do damage to another racer with fewer cards in hand than middle damage, that player discards all of them, if any, and waits till the end of the turn before recovering. So yeah, it's saying if you have to take damage, you can't forcibly discard more cards than you have, but someone else can do your cards. So if you have something that says, for you to play this, take 2 damage, and you only have 1 card, you can't forcibly hurt yourself more, but someone else can hurt you. There's blocks and mega blocks, which just block effects of cards, do not cancel their speed. You can't catch a projectile or dice that have already been thrown, or an effect requires one to take damage when 1 or more cards have been discarded. Drawing cards, some let you draw cards, no deck, just reshuffle. You have to take from someone's hand, do it by random. Then there's the dexterity part of the game. There are little tiny meeples. Whoop, I'm throwing them away. Bananas, eggs, feathers, a couple other ones. We have a meteor and a log as well. And each one, and I'll go over them a little bit more when we get into them. Each one's going to play a little dexterity game, which will do something different. We just kind of want to hop through the rest of this. So we did kind of talk about the worlds a little bit. I'm going to come back to those after we went through all the different characters. But each one's going to have its own special thing. The last little bit of rule things, if you want to play cup mode. So basically in this, you play 4 tracks in a row. They recommend which order. You can play all short, you can play all long, you can mix and match. You could go, but you could do the inside track, outside track of one side, then do the inside of one, outside of another. As long as they're playing a couple in a row. You could extend it and play more than 4 if you'd like. That's up to you. But it says place the 12 dino meeples or miniatures on the table, which you are not using as racers. So each racer comes with a miniature, and a meeple. So you can kind of play with whichever. So if you don't want to have to have your big giant meeples or miniatures on the table, you can use meeples as well. Kind of just a little interesting way to play. And they're considered to be fans. So in cup mode, what you are trying to do is get the most fans at the end of the round. So it says, at the end of the fourth race, the player with the most fans becomes a new champion. In case of a tie, player with the most power-up cards wins. Yeah, so how this more or less works the same way as everything else. But it says, at the end of each race, player earns fans or power-up cards according to their places. First place takes 2 fans, second place takes 1 fan, third to 6th place, you draw 1 power-up card. And then you can use unique power-up or special abilities on the characters. Each have their own unique abilities. And then you have these special power-up cards as well, which when you get down, they just give you additional effects that you can use, and they will tell you when they activate. Now, can you use these in a regular game? Can you use the player abilities in a regular game? Sure, you could pass out X number of these cards and just be like, hey, everyone starts off with 1 power-up card or 2 power-up cards, add different stuff. I mean, there's nothing in the rules really talking about that, but there's generally no reason why you couldn't. 1-player mode, 2-player mode, and artificial intelligence. So, this is just basically you can do a challenge mode. There's a different setups. I'm not going to go too much into each one of these. But when you're playing a challenge for this, for single player and 2-player games, each round after you reveal your card, steaming page with the top card of each challenger's hand, and the type of movement card revealed determines how many hexes they move. So normal card moves speed value of the challenge is blue. Aggressive, they move to if the aggressive, and reaction is they'll move on their reaction. So like on their card, it'll show this. So if I draw a blue card, I will move that speed plus its extra challenge. I will move, You know, each one depending on whichever color I get. And it says to be considered, ignore all card effects and power abilities from challengers. They still draw cards that advance their turn according to their place. Aggressive cards that ability challenger are considered to enrage players. Yeah, so it's just a quick mode so you can play basically versus an AI character. You just place out X number of challengers that you're going to play against, and then you draw cards for them. It determines how they move around the board. But they don't have the option of picking which cards they use like you do. And there's an 8-player game variant. Single derby, just you can play as teams. First and fifth player, so you set up teams. And then you have like, it's just showing some on one, like half on one map, half on the other is what it looks like. Player team 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so there's some extra rules there. I don't want to go over too much of all that, because that's just that. Some achievements you can play, which are always kind of fun in games. Just keep track of who does what. Cool. There's the Creature Kingdoms logo, if we didn't see that before. And the expansion, which we will also do a video for. Alright, so that was a lot to kind of go through for this, but now we're going to hop in to look at the characters. Alright, so what's really a cool, interesting thing what they did with this game was all the dinos obviously have dodos with them, but the first name is the name of the, I believe the first one is the name of the dinosaur, the second one is the name of the dodo. But the dinosaur, so this is Culliver and Patrice. So Culliver, which is a dinosaur, is named after the paleontologist or scientist or whomever was credited with discovering the maybe the original fossil or part. It kind of varies sometimes from the things. It's kind of neat, so if you recognize some of these names, that's why. I'm not going to go ahead and, but you can go look them up. I'm not going to break down who each one is. And that, but yeah, it's kind of neat. So this is a pterodactyl. Again, they don't list them on these, but they did fix that in the expansion, which is kind of nice. And then Patrice, the second name is usually credited to, not always, but usually either a play on some of the characters' names. Sometimes there's someone within the company, like some are named after some of the creators' kids, some are named after certain fans, just things like that. So it's kind of a neat little thing. And on the other side, we do have their abilities, and we have their miniature here, too. And you see their little meeple there. The miniatures are definitely gorgeous. Like, so I had to have them flying kind of on, like, off like a cloud or a rock there to show he's flying in the air. But it's just a nice pose. He's carrying him in a basket around his neck. Alright, and they each have their own different colors, which is also fun. Culliver and Patrice, whenever you advance, you can skip hexes with other races. So this lets you can fly over, let you get some advantages. And then now, the easy mode is going to be the same for all the easy characters. This is for single player or the 2-player challenge mode. So it just means when I draw a blue card or a red card or a green card, they get 1 extra movement. Alright, we're going to kind of fly through these guys a little bit. No pun intended. It's on the back side, they just have the full art, so I'm not going to keep showing that one. But we have our Ankylosaurus here, who is Kaizen and Achilles. And I'm wondering if Achilles is maybe like a reference to like the Achilles heel. You have a big armored guy, so of course like his feet are kind of going to be the weak point. It says whenever you launch any amount of projectiles, launch an additional one of the same type. That's pretty cool. Alright, and if you're not playing with the abilities, then you just basically pick your favorite dinosaur. Then if you want to use abilities, you have a little bit more option. Here's our Brontosaurus. I love his leg up in the air. I love that they actually have, like, running animations. That they could have just had each of the guys just standing there. But the fact they're in action poses is really cool to me. Yeah, he's strapped on the top of his head. You can see the little miniatures kind of like trying to represent the dodos being on there as well. So Riggs and Sorrow, Brontosauro, you know, Whenever you take damage, you take 1 less damage. Very nice. Alright. Then we have Barkham and Helmet. Because he's a helmet. He has a little head. So this is a Ditchiosaurus, I believe, is how it's pronounced. So he likes to ram people with his head. My favorite part, I love the action poses, but I love how some of these guys are just attached. Like, he's just literally just strapped onto the back of him. Like, he's quote-unquote riding him. So that's funny. After you advance, you go back. All racers 1 hex ahead of you take 3 damage. So yeah, if he has to move one direction or the other, he does damage to everybody around him. So that could actually be very strategic too, if you could maybe kind of plan that. Alright, up next we have Ornithel and Tracy. These are Triceratops. Little young one, so doesn't have its extra horn yet, but it's getting there. But yeah, kind of like the bucking up, rearing. He's falling off his nest. At the end of each round, draw 1 card or advance 1 hex. And these are the standard level characters, so there's 4 of each. So you'll have +2, and 1 for reactions. And this one might be a little bit harder to see that meeple. But we have Sealy and Leo, who is a megalodon. This is actually a aquatic animal. Try and see if we can see his, but he's on wheels, so he can actually run. That's a fun extra thing to do. It's also cool that they got all different dinosaurs for all these. Whenever any racer passes, you take 1 random card from their hand and advance 1 hex. Alright, our next one is Parks and Chris. A Dimetriodon. This guy does not look amused by this. He's like, oh, the guy's hanging on to biting onto his head. So that's kind of funny. Whenever you draw cards, draw 1 additional card. And there's no hand limit, so that's always great. So you can just get more energy. To stay alive longer or run more. We have our Stegosaurus, Marsh, and Spike. I wonder if Spike is a reference to Spike from Land Before Time. Also maybe just because he has spikes kind of on his back, which is why the name is Spike. But yeah, he's just kind of riding on there. The pink guy. Like, that's just look on his face too. He's like, oh, what's going on? Whenever you hit any racer with a projectile, advance an additional 2 hexes. It's kind of neat because you can also sort of see, like, the easy characters were kind of more like, with the exception of the Helmet Dimetrion, they were kind of more like docile characters, and then the middle ones are kind of like the standard kind of more like mid aggression characters, and then we get to the hard ones, which are like the predator types. So we have Stromer and Spencer. Oh, I forgot what kind of dinosaur this was. I want to say it starts with an I, like an Igniosaurus. I will look it up. I will get back to us in a second here. But yeah, he's kind of just strapped to his tail there. Alright, I just want to look this up quick so I make sure I had this right. This is a Spinosaurus. I did have a couple of corrections here. I did say some. So I did say this is a Megalodon, which might be like the official name for it. But it is actually listed as a Leopurodon. So like Megalodon might be like the just generalized name you give for it, but it's not. It's dinosaur name. And then this one I did actually say I said a Dimetron, which is also wrong. This is a Paracephalios, and I'm probably mispronouncing these names as well. So that was that one. And the other one I kind of maybe messed up on was this one, which I only remember what it exactly called. I thought it's a Pachycephalosaurus, which I may not have said that completely. Yeah, so I just want to make sure I did my minor corrections on those few characters. Just to make sure that I don't have my dino nerds getting mad at me. Alright. We did not actually read what his ability said. Whenever you roll any amount of dice, they advance 3 hexes. So rolling dice. In the hard guys, you 4, 3, and 2. So they have a lot more stuff to deal with. And then I just shuffled in. Yeah, so they're gonna be each side. They're gonna be a lot more challenging versus 1s or 2s. They're gonna move a lot more. Then we have our green one. We have our Velociraptor, Gold freaking Valerie. He's got, again, that dust down there to kind of help hold him up, but it definitely works. His eyeballs, because he's being muzzled back. Alright, and his says, whenever you play a reaction card, advance 2 hexes. We have 2 left to go, and they're very interesting ones. So we have, focus here, Oberendorfer and the JJJs. So these are 3 little guys pulling a big fat dodo, which is just exciting. They're trying to push the other guys, lifting from the back there, just pulling as hard as he can. That's just very funny. That's also funny that they're the hard mode. These are Compogaffius. So if you remember Jurassic Park 2, I believe these are the ones. They're the little tiny guys that ate the child at the beginning of that movie. Reduce your speed value by 1. After revealing cards, you may exchange yours for another card in your hand. So these guys don't move as fast, but they get to kind of swap their cards around. Then our final Dodo dinosaur combo, of course, we have Osborne and Ronaldo, the T-Rex or Tyrannosaurus Rex. And this is like a hot neon pink too. Yeah, it's hanging up there. Little tiny arms, like rawr. Like in the mouth, I like the tongue and stuff. That's just really cool. Very cool aesthetic. It says whenever you deal damage to any racer, including you, those racers take 1 additional damage. Awesome. So that's all of our different dinosaurs and our meeples. So there are 12 different ones. That's a lot of different racers, so you get to choose from and different stuff. The next thing we want to look at are our movement cards. So they're all going to have the same back, Dodos Riding Dinos. And we'll kind of fly through these a little bit. So we're going to have Expert, which has 0 movement, which says drop 1 egg as if it were a meteor of 1 damage. On a hit, advance 11 hexes. Okay, so I guess they're going to start talking about doing damage and using the meeples. Let's go over those quick first. So we are going to have different projectiles. We're going to have Meteor, which is going to drop from 1 foot above. Now, in the book, they actually explain these a little bit more, but we're going to have these. So basically, this is going to be just put it in your hand, drop it from about a foot above the board. Any guy it hits takes a point of damage, or it's going to do what it says. There might be different damages for each one. But this you just take, you'll release and drop, kind of like the picture shows. For the egg, you are going to flick it from your hex. So we have a little tiny egg here. You're just going to roll oblong. Hopefully you're flicking it that way, or you can lay it down, flick it that way. What you got to do is put your finger out, move this for a sec, and you have to flick it like this. Not with your finger or thumb holding it, Just your finger has to be able to flick it. But it does say, like, you can move all the other characters off the board for the moment they're on that same hex for whatever direction you're trying to hit. And you can try and hit someone that's like space in front of you, space behind you, across the board. Banana. Place your elbow on the table and throw it. So we have some bananas. These are even cool. They're all like screen printed. And the bananas you will kind of hold up, and then you have to do like a wrist flick. Not a full elbow, not a full arm chuck, but just once your elbow's there, you flick your wrist forward. So it gives you less movement on it. The feather. Throw it while making a curve towards the board. So this is actually, you stick it off the board. You're off the board like a little bit, and then you kind of gently toss it towards the board to see where it lands. Then you have the log, which is our final one. Big old giant log here, which you put your hand up above your meeple or your eraser, and you just kind of let it slide off your hand, and you see where it rolls. So this is what the dexterity part of the game is. It's nothing like outrageously crazy, but it is going to add some different elements you just playing the game and racing. Now, one big question might come up is there a way to play without using these dexterity things? If you do, you're just going to have to ignore all the abilities, because as we saw, the first card we looked at already had abilities, already wanted you to do it. Some of the dinosaur special abilities are going to say if you do a projectile, you can avoid like that one or two, but you could probably just take out the cards that involve projectiles, but I think you're going to be taking out too many. It's going to make the game boring. Plus, it's the whole point of the game, or part of it. So here we have drop the egg after a meteor of 1 damage. On a hit, advance 11 hexes. So this is kind of cool because the egg to meteor size ratio is very different. So you're dropping this from a foot above the board. You have a lot easier time hitting with the big red meteor than that little white egg. But if you can hit with it, you can move 11 hexes, which is pretty darn crazy. We have extra cautious. I think I have these in backwards order of how they might have started, but so they're waiting. So for comparison, just to show this, we have 2 copies of cautious, which have the same effect. It just says draw 2 cards. Just as them replacing the wheels on our Celio. And then we have extra cautious. Has 1 movement. Moving slower, but you get to draw 3 cards. But now they're doing it while he's asleep at night. That's just pretty fun. There's our expert again. We have a copy of Twister. Move 2, take 2 damage. But roll 1 die. All other racers must go back that amount. So we do have 2 dice. There's a red one and a blue one. They have the exact same numbers, 1 through 6, like any other regular die. Love that they're big and chunky. So I don't really know if there's a difference other than there's just kind of the different symbols on there. But even as you see, they get 6 is the aggressive symbol, and the other ones are kind of all the softer ones. So I don't know if any are going to, like, you're playing the blue card if you have to roll blue dice, or if they just want to make different dice so you can have them across the board. But yeah, you have to take 2 damage to do that. Urgency, move 0, but roll 2 dice and advance that amount. So this could be, very good. You could get 12 spaces. You could get 2 spaces. The artwork on here is really fun too. Bananas. Move 2, throw 2 bananas of 1 damage. Hit all racers, must go back 2 hexes. Now there's only 1 banana in the set, so you're going to have to throw it 1 at a time. Now, the question would be is if you get the expansion and you have the second banana, would you throw 2 at the same time? I guess that would be up to you. Might be harder to hit with, though. We have 2 copies of that. We have 3 copies of just banana, which lets you throw 1 damage. But also moves guys back. Earthquake. All players pass their hands to the player on their right. I'm going to stop reading the movement amount. You can read that quick. We have Thievery. He's a claw. Exchange your hand with another player of your choice. Greasing Feathers. Take one random card from each player ahead of you. We have 2 copies of Meteorite. Drop 1 meteor of 2 damage. For each racer hit, draw 1 card and advance 2 hexes. Ghost. Choose a racer ahead of you. Look at that player's hand. Take 1 card of your choice. 2 copies of Nostalgia. They're all just happy and not racing. Take any card from your choice from the discard pile. 2 copies of Thunder. All racers ahead of you take 2 damage. 3 copies of Egg. Flick 1 egg of 2 damage. On 1 hit, draw a card. We have 2 copies of Eggs, plural. Flick 2 eggs of 1 damage. If both hit, draw 2 cards. 3 copies of Dino Jump. Roll 1 dice, advance that amount. And a great Dino Jump. Take 1 damage, roll 1 die, and advance that amount. So I take a hit of damage for it, but you're already moving 4. Plus you can move another. So you can definitely see how you can get around very quick with some of these cards. Stampede, roll 1 die, advance that amount. Roll another die, all other racers advance that amount. So this can be very good, very bad, you know. Overload, take 3 damage, but advance 9 hexes. Boring, 5 movement, but this card does nothing. But hey, 5 movement's not bad either. 2 copies of Rolling Log. Roll a log, advance of 1 damage. All racers hit must go back 3 hexes. And 2 copies of Feather. Throw a feather once. Place your racer 1 hex behind one of the hit racers. Cool. So you can see how it's a very competitive, aggressive racing game. Kind of like Mario Kart, which I think is a very apt thing. Our red ones, we have, or aggression, we have 2 movement. Let's just place your racer 1 hex behind the lead racer. Yeah, so that's not bad at all. We have 2 copies of Giant Meteorite. Drop 1 Meteorite of 5 damage. So now you can see, like, the movement might not still be any more aggressive, but the abilities sure are. For each hit racer, draw 2 cards and advance 2 hexes. And then we have Meteors. Drop 2 meteors of 3 damage. Each hit racer draws 2 cards and advances 2 hexes. The Early Bird. Place an additional card, normal aggressive, from your hand. 2 copies of Supplant. Take 3 damage, exchange places with another racer. 2 copies of Shooting Comet. Oh, that has to hurt. Roll 2 dice and advance that amount. Take 1 random card from all racers you pass. They take 2 damage. 2 copies of Extreme Urgency. So he has Urgency of the original card. Oh god, I love this artwork on these. There's Urgency. Oh, wrong way. He runs off the cliff. Now there's a wrong way and a danger sign, and he dives off the cliff. Roll 3 dice, advance that amount. Dodos Hierarchy. All racers ahead of you must give you exactly 2 cards for each player that can't advance 3 hexes. 2 copies of Dodo Wisdom. Advance 6 hexes and draw 3 cards. He does not look amused. 2 copies of Mega Rolling Log. Roll 1 log for 5 damage. All hit racers must go back 3. And then Mega Feather. Just kicks him off the ledge. Take 1 damage. Throw the feather up to 3 times. Place your racer 1 hex of the last hit racer. It's kind of nice it says up to 3. So you can basically throw it and then it's like, oh, I hit that guy? Great. I hit a guy early on. I'm fine. I don't need to try anymore. Cool. Then we have our reactions. We have Karma. Now these don't have movement on them directly printed because they do stuff. So it says roll 1 die. All racers, including you, take that amount of damage. We have 2 copies of Fast Legs. Advance 2 hexes. This is someone else plays something. It's going to let you gain a little extra. We have 3 copies of Blocking. Cancel the effect of the last movement played. So this could basically be like, I'm second player and first player does something I don't like, I can cancel it. Or I could be second player and like the fourth player goes, I could cancel their effect. So it just lets you like, you gotta play when you think it'd be best to cancel that. But also remember, is every time you play a reaction, that's one less card you have in your hand. Otherwise, you could keep reactions in your hand for at least a little while. But once you run out of movement cards anyhow, the blue or the red, you have to redraw anyhow. So keeping reactions in your hand, like, I'm going to keep waiting, is not necessarily a good idea. Use them because once you run out, you're going to have to draw anyhow. We have 2 copies of Mega Blocking. Cancel the effect of the last movement. Its owner takes 2 damage. And then 2 copies of Another Chance. Take 2 damage, roll 1 die, and advance that amount. Awesome. So those are the different cards. You can definitely see all of the different stuff. End of the turn. Yeah, go back through and draw 5 cards. Yeah, so when you have to recover, you draw 5 cards. So yeah, you could keep these reactions in your hand for as long as you want, but it's like eventually, why not use them? Because you have to keep drawing more cards, but it doesn't necessarily help you, because as soon as you run out of the other cards, you're going to have to go. Alright, then we have our power-up cards, which will have a slightly different back. So these are this direction, these are this direction, just to kind of show the 4 different elements of the races. And we'll have some different effects there. We have 2 copies of Corn. You may discard this card at the beginning of the race to take a fan from a player who has the most. We have 2 Coconuts. At the beginning of each race, draw 2 cards and advance 2 hexes. A Bamboo. When launching a projectile, your first hit deals 4 additional damage used once per race. Mango. At the beginning of each race, advance 5 hexes. Gummy Bear. Once per round during the running phase, you may discard 1 card from your hand to draw a card. Marshmallow. Once per race, draw 4 cards during your turn. Sweet Worm. At the end of each round, advance 2 hexes if you are adjacent to another racer. Chewing Gum. At the end of each round, if you're in the last place, advance 4 hexes. The Blue Kiwi. You may discard this card to play a normal card as if it were a reaction. Ooh, that's kind of fun. Red card. You may discard this card to play an aggressive card as if it were a reaction. The Dodorado map. So this is a mention to the second game, which involves going to Dodorado. Whenever you draw a new hand of cards, draw 1 additional card. The Banana. Whenever you roll 1 or more die, you can choose to reroll 1. The Tomato or Tomato, which it's a vampire. Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. You may discard this at the beginning of the running phase. All players except you skip their turn. And then finally, we have the Watermelon. Whenever you launch a projectile, you may replace an egg, banana, or feather with a meteorite token. Oh boy, that could be pretty crazy. Alright, so then the last thing we want to go over, which we skipped earlier, is we want to look at what each map does special. Well, it's one of the last 2 things. We have one other thing after that. So Go-Go Island doesn't have anything special. It just has your finish line and your regular hexes. Borealis Skies, we mentioned, has the glass jumps. So when you ride to a glass ramp, you must try and make a jump to the other side, flick an egg token without damage or triggering racer abilities from the glass map to the landing hexes, like the Pauperns. Every try costs 1 movement. If the egg touches any landing hex, place your racer on the hex to continue advancing. When you finish your jump attempts and succeed, you must choose one of the following. So all you do is, so if I play a card that says 3 movement, I get 3 chances at it. If I play one that says 1 movement, I get 1 chance at it. But it says before flickering, remove landing hex from the landing hexes any other racers, just so you're not hitting them and it's stopping because of them as opposed to rolling by. After you finish jumping attempts and you don't succeed, you may choose one of the following options. Take 2 damage and move to the landing hex with the smallest paw, or finish your turn on the glass ramp. Racers going back automatically jump from the landing hex to the glass ramp. So do you want to take the 2 damage, which means discarding 2 cards, which again, if that runs out your hand, now you have to move back 3 more hexes to draw a new hand, or do you just want to I chalked it up, I tried it once, I'll wait till my next turn. Basically after you've done it twice though, if you played 2 cards and you've already effectively taken the 2 damage, or by the time you've played 3 cards, say, the initial one and you didn't succeed, and then you played 2 more after that, now you've done 3 cards, which would have been the same as just taking 2 damage on the first one, but now you're 3 turns behind. It's kind of reminds me of Monopoly and going to jail. Do you just roll 3 dice and let everyone else, and take your time? Or do you just pay the 50 or you just play a card to get out, right? Alright, then we have the Igneous Volcano, which has flames. You can only enter a flame hex by advancing the exact amount of hexes. This is actually a really cool thing I think of, because normally why wouldn't you always try and play the card with the most movement on it, right? For the most part. This actually means you might want to plan out, I gotta save, I need to find a 2 to do this, so maybe if I have a 3 this turn, I could maybe move 4 this turn. You could kind of plan that a little bit. Alternatively, make sure to ignore the flame hex and follow the track by the corresponding adjacent hex. So it kind of has them off to the side of the board. Let's see if we can kind of look at that a little bit better. Yeah, we'll grab the board and we'll take a look at it in just a sec here. Is it on the opposite side of this one? Nope, opposite side of the base one. Let me... So yeah, what this is saying here is if I'm moving this way, I can either move here, 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 or I can move here, here, move up to there, personally step a place out to land on that spot and then come back. So it's not just on the track. You have to purposely move outside the board to get to it. And so you cannot enter the flame hexes by going back. So if you have to move back 3 spaces, you don't move onto the flame hex. When you finish off flame hex, choose one of the following. Ashes. Take a card of your choice from the discard pile, or fireballs. Deal 1 damage to all racers standing in the closest 2 hexes in any direction, regardless of distance. So it's kind of neat. You get, if you want to spend that extra movement point, you get an extra little bonus. And then finally, we have the Polaria Iceberg, which has the shortcuts and the shortcut hexes. When the track was in the hex or the shortcut, in a track where there are hexes with shortcuts, when you step on a shortcut signal, the little broken bone, you must roll a die, which does not trigger racer abilities or provide movement. On a 4, 5, or 6 as a success, continue advancing through the shortcut. 1, 2, or 3 failure, take 1 damage, and continue advancing through the regular path. Racers going back must follow the regular path. And then there's the deep snow. Speed values and movement is reduced by 1. Only affects speed value, not from dice results, effects, abilities, or powers. So I just want to do a quick relook at these boards here. So here's our jump for one of the Borealis, and there's the other pause that you have to land to. So it's kind of the distance you have to shoot between them. But to also note on here is just kind of the inner and outside of the boards for this. Let me move this out of the way. So on the inside of the board, there's 1 track. You're going from there to there. That's not too bad. On this side, it's from there to there. That's also not too bad. The outside of the track here is from way over there to way over there. That one might be a little bit trickier. But that's also towards the end of the race. So, you could see people maybe getting stuck or getting hurt at that spot. And then if we flip this over and we look at our ice board, I'm trying to find one of our, there's our shortcut. So if we're taking our shortcut on the other side, we land here, you have to roll a die and then possibly take this bridge or go back. I think it says to say when you land, when you step a shortcut signal, I think this is when you step on one, you have to roll a die. So you do not have the option to skip it. If you're going to try and take it, you might just end up taking 1 damage and going around. But it looks like on each side, there's 2 different shortcuts to take. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then there's this symbol, just a reminder that those ones cost 1 movement. Yeah, snow versus ice, essentially. Yeah, so that's what we have there. So the last 2 things I wanted to show off just before we end this is the bottom of the box. Has a neat little, like, cave tunnel. It has, like, it's a little treasure in there. Again, another hint to the second game, which is Dodos Riding Dinosaurs Dash, but they go to the El Dorado, which is, like, the City of Gold. So that's really neat that they have that. It's kind of a little hint. Then also in the bottom of the box was a set of 3 promo cards. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. I didn't even know they're not listed in the book. Maybe if you bought this during the Kickstarter, they had mentioned it, but I didn't see anything before. So we do have another action card. So we're just going to look at these 3 really quick. We have Identity Crisis. This round, all the racers must go back equal to their speed value instead of advancing. So this only really works if you get this early, if you get this later. This is a crossover card with some of the other Creature Kingdom games. We do have the Dorado Idol, so again, another mention there. There's a mixture of different dinosaurs. At the beginning of each race, and add the ability of another racer to yours until the end of the race. Choose a different racer in each race. Yeah, so it's going to kind of let you get some extra abilities. And then the last one is actually not even for this game. It's a Scrolls game. It's a crossover card. I believe this is War for Chicken Island game. Leroy Chicken, which is the Leroy Jenkins World of Warcraft reference. Your chicken leader gains +2 strength and 2 armor while standing in another player's territory tile. I don't really know what that means because I don't have that game right yet, so I can't speak to that as much. But that is what we have. So that was Dodos Riding Dinosaurs. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Come back, check out when I do the unboxing for the sequel, as well as the crossover expansions, and then when the other games come out, the Panda and Kiwi, and I get all them, we'll definitely do a bunch of those as well. See you guys later. Bye.